Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call this finance meeting to order at 7 o'clock. So should we start with old business?
Yep.
Well, I don't really have any old business except for maybe something you brought up about the body cams. Do you want to do that later or?
We can do it now.
He said go, Mark. He's on his way.
Oh, you just want me to talk about it, or?
Yeah, I mean, because I guess it would be old business.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on at the actual moment.
well, so the invoice is still sitting in my office. We haven't paid it yet. We did get the 500 or 400. I can't remember what number. Whatever it was the sales tax was taken off because local government doesn't pay sales tax, and they had charged us that. So I made sure to get that form turned in. And I mean, not to speak for the city manager, but as far as the payment goes, I mean, and I think it was kind of hashed, unless we want to go over it again, it was hashed out why it was problematic over email. But as far as paying for it, I mean, I think Scott's, and I support the idea that it should be taken from within the budget. It's a pretty tight budget as it is. And then we spent so many hours, we didn't even realize how long we were doing it today, which time flies when you're having fun, looking through the budget as far as due to revenue cuts that we're expecting because of the shutdown. And there's just not a lot of room to take it from elsewhere. So Scott was planning to pull it from within the department's budget. I mean, that's appropriate too, but.
Yeah, I think he's just going to have to start learning to live within his own budget.
Well, unfortunately, there was a new line item put in the police department this year that was specific for our officer that retired at the beginning of the year. So luckily there was already some fluff built in, and that line item still has $3,600 in it. And then there's another line item for repairs and maintenance above that's had zero usage so far this year. That's $1,000.
What line item, Scott?
So on the first page, if yours looks like mine, it's 100-100-810. So 80,010, 80010.
Labeled other, right?
Yeah, that's the one I asked about last December, and it was,
A confusing answer.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
He's at the light.
Yeah, and then there was a few other places. I mean, I don't know if he has to go through. It's just.
Well, I got it down to 4. So if we took it from that line item, and then the one directly above that is repairs and maintenance that has zero usage, you can pull 1,000 out of that. And then if you roll up to operating supplies, he's got a $4,500 budget in there. If we took $1,650 from that one, and then lastly up on,
Are you looking at the 410? Because I've got 6,000 in there.
mine might be more updated than
Well,
yours.
he's reading from numbers from. He's reading the numbers that are today's, meaning
Oh,
some of those are
okay.
some of that's spent.
Has been spent.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. So if we take $1,650 from that one, and then if you go up a little bit higher, Carla, around data processing, the last 5 is 30013. If you take that $750, so if you take from those 4 line items right there, it'll cover it. And
Oh.
it'll have a minimal dent, well, minimal relatively speaking, to his operating supplies. And then the other ones, it doesn't look like they're really being used anyways. I don't know what data processing and PD means per se, but it was in there. We have that line item in a lot of places, and and as we shared through our other conversations, part of the event today was just looking everywhere possible to save in the line items, look for things that we can consolidate together, different ways to reduce spending. I think we came up with a couple dozen options, if you will, within the budget alone to reduce spending for this year, at least to get us through. I don't know the exact number, but COVID aside, what did we roughly say? Just maybe 100-ish thousand for all the stuff we had to pay out that we found that was behind or late.
Yeah. Yeah, from the investigation and all of the stuff that's been left behind.
So roughly 100,000 has been paid out for that too, in addition to COVID. So I'm looking at everywhere we can to pinch pennies. In fact, Jason is currently looking at ways to do a lot of our own paving. So maybe we can still accomplish a lot of the paving projects, but maybe we rent equipment instead of hiring a contractor to do it per se. So we may not be able to do as much paving. Well, let me take that back. We might be able to do the same amount of paving as we were hiring a contract by doing it in-house and renting the equipment, and still save a little bit of money on that line item, as an example. There's a lot of other places too. She was there. We had a fake employee on the fire department, part-time line item. That's $30K that we can save right there as well. We were just going through.
No fault of the department, it should be said.
Yeah. Nothing. This was all from the
Deputy auditor.
yeah, the alleged stuff.
The former deputy, yeah.
So I just wanted to try and give you a little bit of reassurance, and we can definitely bring you in and show you all the different line items we're looking at. It would take for a really long time to be going through and reading them all now, and some of them need further investigation before I can say.
So could we get something updated on that as to how much we have? I mean, not tonight. But
Yeah. How much you have as in,
well, like you
this
said,
plan that I'm talking about?
30,000 was it?
yeah, I mean, so, and I think, so big picture, and Scott and I did this in our meeting today, and it would actually be kind of nice to have a briefer version with finance once we get it on paper. But I mean, to me, you have to just look at what's going on around. So the county has got issues, the city of Athens has got issues coming up. OU is already ahead of the curve with huge layoffs and furlough, and they're 1,000 times richer than we will ever be as the city of Nelsonville. And so the big picture is there's a humongous, to use another fire reference, 5-alarm fire in government funding across the entire country. And so what Scott and I have been doing, and we've been doing this while trying our best to have our, do our calm faces, we're adults about this, and knowing, what's going on and everything, have been basically finding anything everywhere that's possible, whether it be revenue or expenditure savings, to avoid what other places are going to be doing. So basically what he's talking about is with our meeting was we are looking everywhere that we want to freeze spending for at least as long as possible so that next year we have money in the bank to where our budget discussions in November don't involve scary words like the L word, which I refuse to say because when it's said, it starts terrible rumors.
Yes.
But the
That's
L
not the
word,
consideration.
it's not on the table, but if we don't do something, we're just going to be like everybody else, if that makes sense. And so anyway, that's what we've been working on really for weeks now, and literally selling stuff off the lot because we want the general fund to be strong enough.
There's 32 grand, didn't know that.
Yeah.
I guess the way I would sum it up, Carla, that works for me is every single line item now is being scrutinized and asked why. And everything's
We've
gonna
done that for a while.
Office supplies, the staff hasn't, the ones that are watching are gonna find out now. Office supplies are getting centralized. We're gonna pull all that into one place. Cleaning supplies, all one place. If you need a ream of paper, you come to the supply room, you get a ream of paper. Instead, now every department's kind of managing it how they want, which is
Okay.
fine to some degree, but when it comes to something as simple as office supplies and cleaning supplies, there's no reason why we shouldn't have all that centralized in one area.
So we won't have to have so much for each, is that what
Yes.
you're saying, next
Right.
budget?
Because even if you look in my office, and I've joked about this as I got here, I've barely ordered any office supplies since I've gotten here, and I have enough folders and other office supplies for probably 2 or 3 terms. And I think that's a byproduct that everyone's got separate supplies, so everyone spends their money, everyone keeps it in their own closet. I'm not sure everybody's here is like the auditor's office, but to me, it's like I'm never going to order a folder until I'm 40 years old if the voters keep me in this job.
But they always
And-
seem to be used every year.
And the line items, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, right.
I think a lot of that has to do when you're dealing with government, and this deals with the universities as well. I mean, if you get a budget, you spend your budget, because if you don't spend your budget, you lose your budget.
Correct.
Sure.
And so, but I think that actually is exactly the opposite of the way it should be, because if you can manage your budget and stay under budget, then I feel like you should keep your budget.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's good. It should be
And Scott's been great about a lot, and I've said to him,
I'm
I've said,
confused. Which way is it you want it? One or each department?
No, one, I think that sounds great, because then what happens is, if he's got enough folders and stuff like that for, 3 terms, I mean, just think about throughout the city and, the amount of paper and paper clips and stuff that we
Oh,
have.
exactly. We all brought all that up in December. I don't know if you remember, but it was specified that it was all needed.
Yeah,
No, I don't mind changing it to one. I'm just saying we tried talking about.
let's put it this way. I know where the secret locker with all the hidden toilet paper is in the city now.
Do you know where the airport key is?
But we're cutting back on electric costs, so we gotta keep the AC cool.
and I've complimented Scott, and I was actually talking last night and complimenting city council on that. If you had to ask me 2 months ago, not in this room, but over in my office, what did I think 2 months of shutdown would do for us? I would say the general fund had no chance. I mean, negative 200,000 maybe, something that we had no chance against. But I think because of some fortunate breaks, some efforts we've had with the state, and then a lot of really good things coming out of the city manager's office and plugging holes in my office and just a whole bunch of things, I think we've got a chance. One of my compliments was I was really glad council's playing ball with a lot of big changes that would really take typically like 6 months or a year, but we're having to do it so rapidly because things are changing by the week. I mean, it's like government's slow anyway, right? And like we can't even keep up with how quick the world's changing around the city of Nelsonville. So
Okay, so we don't have any problem finding the money then, because I did find this. I mean, I just honestly do not remember what we talked about 8 and 10 months ago. But I did find this where it does show the first year is 12,000 and then the next years were like 6,000. But honestly, I mean, it's specific language from the actual meeting. I mean, I just don't remember every single solitary word.
right.
But I do have
Well, I know-
it shows we talked about it.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to be more careful about, and it's something Scott, I'm sure, will never make a mistake on, considering the history, but the future contracts have to be approved by ordinance and.
Over 5K.
Oh,
Or anything future years as well.
yeah, you just can't commit taxpayer money from 5 years from now, you can't commit unless the ordinance says we authorize Scott Frank to sign a contract or seek a contract or whatever language it would be. But I think it's something that we really have to.
Well, that's what we've been
Be more careful
talking
about.
about at some length and opinions, is making sure everybody knows what's going on, no matter how it is, no matter how upsetting it is, just get it out there. The public knows, we're not gonna have a big surprise in 2 or 3 years.
We
And
hope.
it should go better.
We hope, right?
Right. Well, that brings me to my next, what I want to ask of the committee members, see if we can bring it on to council. Just with everything that has been going on in the last, 8, 10 months or so. Andrea has asked if it would be possible if we could get maybe between $300 and $400 to get a laptop, like a dedicated laptop, and that way she could write up all of these, since it is actually online now, she can write up all these meetings. There won't be a question of, did we say we was gonna spend 6,000 a year for the next 5 years? It will be written. She can take it home. She won't have to worry about writing on her own computer, driving in here late at night to use this computer. And I would like to ask that maybe we could get a laptop just dedicated to the notes, the committee notes, and make them available to everyone. I wondered what you guys thought.
I don't know if we need, I mean,
I wouldn't say it's something we can't live without. But, I mean, like, nobody wants to have certain stuff on their phone to be confiscated like Chuck's did down at somebody, I won't say, in Athens, where he had to have his phone confiscated. And, I mean, considering what we're spending on lots of things, it's $300 or $400 for her to have a dedicated day to write all this up. And if we would have all these notes of everything that went on, we wouldn't be questioning some of this stuff now. It's just.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I may not have a say in it, but especially during COVID, I've personally needed a lot of stuff from Andrea that she's had on her computer, or she's had on her home computer and it's been a challenge to get it off of her as far as coming in during this event, everything else. So I'm not her biggest customer by any stretch of the imagination, but having that flexibility to maneuver quickly and get that stuff. And I'm not sure her personal situation would be better or not, but I would also like, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon and see if we can double it, one for Jason to put in the trucks, to take with him in the truck for all the different reasons that he has up there. So we currently have a couple old machines that we've pieced together. They're all on the fritz. Big picture, down the road, they should probably, the folks over there have Chromebooks. That won't necessarily work for Jason or Andrea, just because they need to be able to do the data processing, Word, Excel, you name it. And that's just, you can get away with doing it on a Chromebook. It's just not the most pleasant. Most people don't like using it.
Actually, I was gonna expand on that. I was gonna ask for 1,200 for 3 laptops, one for the
You just keep going up. and
One
up.
for the water department, one for Jason, and one for the Andrew.
Water department.
You go over there where you said that he started doing our work orders.
Gotcha.
I think the only part I'm gonna speak on, like in my realm, is just inventory.
Well, you want one too?
No. They had 6 laptops, no.
You get one.
Is on inventory management. I think that if the city, before now, the only 2 folks with laptops was Chuck and Stephanie, our city manager, and Stephanie had one that I know of.
There's more.
Okay, so inventory management, so signing in, signing out, making sure we know who's owns what, where it is. That's my only concern. We have almost no inventory management at the moment, so.
And that's on the radar with the software that we
I
recently
don't
purchased.
even really follow you. I mean, what do you mean?
So in other words, it
Like
should be
we would
treated
have-
very much like a work laptop. It shouldn't just be a laptop that it's like, for any department, it shouldn't just be a laptop that's like, hey, do you have that? And it's, oh, I left it at my house. It's been there since last week. No, that it should be, it should be managed, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
You should
This
know
box
who
is
has it,
working,
what it's
use it.
for. This could be just specifically for.
most places you would have to sign your
whatever
name
stuff
to
you
a,
Need written up and.
yeah, you'd have to sign your name to an agreement to use it for a certain purpose. and
You have to
whatever.
keep serial numbers.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah, I
all
couldn't tell you
that.
the serial number on any of our laptops, honestly. And my office is supposed to have
Depending on
that.
what it's doing and what information is gonna be on there, I mean, there may be things, I mean, I don't know exactly what you have in mind with some of the departments. I mean, Andrea's would just be all public record anyway,
Right.
but if there's things of any privacy or issues with, folks within the city or anything that are on these laptops, we just need to make sure that they're secured. And, they're not stolen, they can't get stolen, or if they are stolen, then they are password protected at least, so people can't really hack into them. Just because, I mean, if they're dealing with customer issues, that, that's the only thing I worry about.
Was that,
Well, so.
That's based on what,
Yeah, so,
they're
okay, so
looking, but I don't know if they need.
For water and sewer though, I would just,
that would stay at that shop over there for their
okay.
inventory.
Okay,
Jason's would be more mobile and he would be personally responsible for it. Just like, our superintendents all have laptops and, they're responsible for them. I
This would
personally have my
mainly be
own
so, you
tablet
know,
and that's what I use on it.
like when the kids are in bed, 11 or 12, you don't want to drive in here at night, get on the computer and write up all the committee
sure.
meeting
And,
notes.
Gary does send out, on Thursdays sometimes, in the afternoons, the ordinances. I mean, she can do a lot of that from home.
And she's been very helpful. Real quick on the financial part, the only money I think you would have to request would be for the clerk, because there's no money set aside for it, but the water and sewer guys should have an office supply, or unless it's all spent up, I don't know.
I'll say somewhere there's
An
like,
operating supply, or,
Yeah,
And
there's
they should have the
operating.
same supply.
so in other words, you should,
Right, none of these numbers, well,
maybe we can look later, but
right. I guess what I'm saying is none of the numbers had that kind of hit to them, built in. A lot of them are $1,000 budgets and maybe 50% gone, but I need to go through, I should have looked at those specific line items first and I get it.
that's all right. We can look. And then, but
Would you
for
still have to appropriate that or?
We
For the
might-
clerks, definitely, because she has no office
Yeah, I know.
supplies set aside. For his, unless, if it's already, if their office supplies was only a few $100 and it's spent, then yeah, we would have to. But I was gonna say on Andrea, she's been helpful. I don't know how it was done in the past. I imagine it wasn't done this way because Stephanie had a lot of control with our relationship with the state auditors for obvious reasons. But the auditors investigators have been requesting a mountain of material from me for the last couple of weeks that I just admit it's been tough to keep up with. And so on a lot of stuff like council minutes dating back to 2010, and ordinances and code sections. I've honestly just been Heismaning those to people I can get them off to. And Andrea's for the brunt of that because there's been so much. So I think for her, a laptop would be helpful because she had to come in each time I had a giant request,
So if I
including
send
today.
that to Mr. Hunter, where would that come from? What should I put in the ordinance to ask? Or do you want to just get with me later?
Yeah, so her current office supply budget comes out of what's called city council office supplies. So maybe just that line item, since that's what she uses anyway.
Oh, we have one line
Which
Yeah, I
one
love
is the
that.
city office supplies?
City council office supplies.
Can
Yeah,
I,
it's like $200. That's
can I ask a question? If you have questions for her that she has to look up that are on from 2010 or something like that, is there any way to interface the laptop with her computer here that already has the information on it?
I have no idea.
So,
Well, that stuff wasn't even all on the computer.
Yeah.
She said, I
She
think
would
she
have to
actually had to
have it.
scan it from the books when they were that old.
so it actually brings up a bigger issue. So to answer your question, yes, she can get an external hard drive and just put it
Okay.
all on there and take it with her.
We don't have the cloud or anything like that.
Not yet. When I ask you for an IT budget about triple what it is now,
You have to get the cloud.
that's where we need to get to.
I mean,
but
you can
baby
do
steps.
Google Docs, but that's kind of cumbersome.
Correct. So she could pull it all over, but I don't believe this is the proper form for it, but I do want to bring it up just so people start thinking about it. You know, how we used to collect minutes and everything else, you know, she would do a recording on a CD. Well, CDs are obsolete now, you know, and then she would do the minutes and save them here and there. You know, I asked her, for whatever reason, it was before her time, the minutes stopped being published on the website. If they were published on the website again, it would
Yeah,
save us a
it
lot of
would.
public records requests because we could just
Yep.
send people the link to it, you know?
I was gonna ask that question.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
that, just to add on, the auditors and the investigators said if we had the minutes, ordinances, and an updated code, I think it was updated 2015, but one that was updated today and resolution, I don't know, whatever it all was, if they said it was online, they wouldn't have had to have included it in the request, so.
And
Just
you
add
know,
on
you can have, whoever did it, it'd probably be Andrea, would have to have a little bit of lessons, but you can make more than one person able to work on the web page, where she could easily add those herself.
yeah, I'm sure she could, I don't know.
Yeah, she's already got a clerk page set up, so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Well, we have somebody who, all you have to do is send him the scanned version and he just uploads it.
Yeah,
We have
it's
somebody
just
who does
that
it.
it would be so easy if she could just do it and just throw it back on, throw it on.
Sure, and go back and put all the history stuff on.
Yeah.
It would take a while, but
Yeah,
but I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to start thinking as a whole as a city moving forward. You know, the CD days, are we gonna, you know, those days are coming to an end. So what do we want to do with all of our old CDs? Do we want to start looking at a company, you know, do we hire a company that can professionally archive all that stuff and put it out somewhere? Or do we just leave it on CDs and hope for the best? I mean, I'm assuming at one point there was floppy disk used here. I know in the military we used floppy disk. Remember those? 3.5? You know, you can't even.
I remember the bigger ones.
yeah.
Yeah, you never know. You can't even find anything to plug it in. I'm just saying that, you know, I mean, just looking here, we're starting to march out of the Stone Age a little bit and just trying to get the thought generation, you know, no immediate action required, but what we do with our data and how we maintain our data, we really ought to look at for the next step and how to get there.
I would hate to have to pay for storage. I would just hope
Well,
we could
I
look
think we
into
can convert
something
that over
else.
digital.
Huh?
I think we can convert those CDs over digital.
You would, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would hate to pay for storage.
Yeah, I think that's, I was gonna ask that question about whether or not those, like even our council meeting minutes are on the webpage. I mean, I've gone on there and looked for ordinances and things like that, but I've never really looked for minutes.
There's some years. I think they told me they could find 16 and 17 and 14 maybe, but it's kind of spotty.
So it'd be nice, I think if we could start doing that going forward, I mean, I think that's more beneficial to even folks in the community, I think, so.
If you got, I think, I don't know, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you guys wanted, because we don't direct the clerk at all, you guys would have to direct, if you wanted everything uploaded, like, to a certain date, I think you guys would have to do that, not on our.
I mean, if it's not, I don't know how to do it, but if it's not difficult to do,
I think it's just scanning, honestly.
But
Just,
honestly, I think if these are gonna be recorded and out there going forward too, that's all better.
So, just to step back for just a sec, who would go buy those, and we should get some input from whoever's going to use them too? Like, who would go out and physically purchase those, or are we gonna do
City
them
manager
online?
would contact our IT guys and go from there.
Could do that. They even recommended, because I've already talked to our IT guys, their stuff's a little bit higher end. And they said for what we're trying to do, we could just go buy an HP like this at Walmart
That's what I
or
was thinking more about.
any,
Or
well,
like $359.
slow down that Walmart reference real quick.
Well,
Not necessarily walk out, but, the purchase would have to go through the city manager
Similar,
first,
yeah.
and then my office.
you just tell me to run in there and grab it and run.
Yeah, well, we want to be careful about, we can't just walk in and buy a laptop with city money, but,
Right.
there's a process.
I got you. I'm
That's
just messing with you.
Okay.
But essentially, we would run it that way. When I talked to Andrea before, she said she got one for her son. She got it on sale. I think she said it was on sale for $320. It was an HP, and
Right.
honestly, it had very similar specs to the one that I got right here in front of me, and that would be more than sufficient. We're not doing hardcore stuff. Microsoft Office, essentially email, internet, and then for Jason, it would probably be YouTube videos for different trainings, and then also our work order system. So
So is that work order system gonna be a little bit more memory?
it's all web-based.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's why I think we talked about it right before you got here. So down the road, maybe next year, we could do the Chromebooks, which are cheaper for the actual employees. Right now we don't even have an employee email account has been created for everyone, but nobody uses it or checks their email. So there's no way to mass communicate with anybody. And a lot of the equipment that they have down there is obsolete. They're wiggling wires to get it to work. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's really old stuff. But they're not going to need a $300 computer every time. If the school sells a bunch of,
That's where I got mine.
yeah,
$35.
yeah,
Pretty cheap, yeah.
that would be, because all they need it for is email, web, work orders. That's it. To get on and search for quotes, do the work orders, and then check their email. So we're not talking any data processing. That's more on the Jason side and the administrators as a whole side.
Did anyone else have anything? Okay, the next thing that I wanted to bring it up, and I see someone has, but do we have any money, or can we get some money for these entrances, like when we come in, for something you would put on the wall for hand sanitizer? I think it's gonna be like an ongoing, from now on type issue. Because when you come in the door, there really isn't any way to clean your hands from everybody opening that door up there.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Well,
We have 10
it will have
gallons
to
of
be attached, or it probably won't last very long.
We have, yeah,
And
There's
I'm
already money
thinking,
appropriated
what
for-
about inside of, like, some of the offices too?
Mhm. That's
Where's
good.
the money appropriated at?
Well, we use a facilities fund from the general fund for City Hall. It's the last 5 line items, I want to say, in the general fund.
Yeah.
And I think it's called City Hall supplies, maybe?
Possibly.
We have
Is it
2,000 of them, so I can't memorize them all, But
Yeah, that's too easy, Carla. That's not a problem at all.
we should be able
Tell
to.
you what, Scott, you get it one day, I'll run through here and put them up.
And we don't need to
Perfect.
do anything.
No, that's not-
No, we should.
That's small potatoes. I can
And
make that
so I
happen.
don't know, if you guys, I didn't read the whole thing either that Mr. Hunter sent, but it looks like we may be able to get reimbursed for even some of that stuff, is what it looked like.
So I'm trying to get
Awesome.
reimbursed a lot of COVID stuff. So specifically right now, anything over $3,000, we can ask for reimbursement. So one of the things that we can ask for is the system in here. We got this system as a result of COVID because we
Right.
had no other way to do any of this. So that one purchase right there throws us over the $3,000 minimum. I also have probably a half a dozen people with overtime associated to COVID. So when one of our police officers gets exposed and we send them home, awaiting the test to come back, somebody has to work overtime. So we've been tracking that. So we're going to try and get refunded for this, several different shifts of overtime. And then also, right now, we have a member on administrative leave because of that stuff. Try and get reimbursed for all that stuff for the city as a whole. No promises, but we're definitely going to ask.
And is Mr. Hunter looking into that, or is that something that you have to do?
So specifically, he is throwing out different ones that are opening up. This one we've known about for a while. So this one we get the request and we submit it through the EMA office down in Athens. So actually, Harry was going to get a hold of him this week and just get all the paperwork that we need to fill out so we can get it turned in. And then, but that wasn't a huge priority. We're just by the end of this week is when I want to try and get, now that we have the final invoice for this, we got 2 weeks on one employee and then maybe another dozen-ish shifts that we can go on there and ask for. We can also pile on all the extra hand sanitizer and all that other
Well, that's
stuff.
what I was thinking we should be able to get.
So
The bigger fish will be, I think it was called the CARES Act, or where a ton of money was sent in the stimulus program to the state to hand down to municipalities. But at first it was decided, this is really all out of our control, so maybe it's not irrelevant bringing up, but the state first kind of decided it was only to municipalities 500,000 or larger. Then it was decided it would be split between 500 larger and 500 smaller. And hopefully in the next 12 months, cities will get money from the federal government, basically just for operating during the time of a national emergency. And those numbers were supposed to be pretty big, 5 digits. So we're hoping that actually pans. When the bill was signed, the understanding of the state was no cities would get it at all. So the fact that it's even being in a conversation now is pretty good, I think.
another place that stuff went was down to USDA. So I don't know what that looks like yet, but we have a couple loans with them, so maybe we'll hear something good out of that.
Okay, so the last thing that I had to talk about was the pool. Do we know what's going on since they are?
Yeah, no, we're good.
I think they said June 1st.
Well, right, so we're a little bit behind as far as the weather set us back a little bit. And then for the concrete, so we have to finish excavating the dirt out around it, which the guys are there. If you've seen them, they've been there all day today. And they've hauled out significant amounts of dirt. With any luck, we'll have the dirt out, but it's supposed to rain 4 inches in the next 3 days or something like that. So that's really, currently we're just putting it back here.
I need some dirt.
Okay. Yeah, we're just piling it up back here for now.
I mean, I'll bring my truck down there and just load it in the truck.
Sure. Yeah, they're just putting it out here for now, and then we got to put the rock down. And then we had multiple bids come in for the concrete to do all around, so around the rim of the pool, and then all around the outside where it used to be vegetation before. And it's roughly 14.8, I believe, for all that concrete to be put in. And then lastly, we got a few more tile repairs, ordering some umbrellas, miscellaneous small parts coming in for it, and then recaulking all the concrete joints internally. Now, one thing that we do know, we know it exists, but we don't know how bad it is during our work down there, we noticed that there's a void underneath one of the slabs. So we don't know how far that void goes. So we're looking at different ways to backfill that to make sure, it's supported.
Pump it up with some CDF.
Could do that.
It's a slurry, you can get it in there, or if you can't get a truck in there, I can get a pump and pump in the pump next.
That's what we're looking at, that or any of the injectable type stuff really to fill it in behind it. Problem is we just haven't been able to get all the caulking removed and look at it. So second week of June, we're shooting for the first week of June, but the reality with the rain this week, it'll probably be the second week of June. As soon as the concrete gets put in there, we can put the water in it and get it stabilized and warmed up. Concrete's just waiting on us to get the dirt out of the way. So
is someone like working on I mean, like employees, I guess? or-
So, yeah, so I am meeting tomorrow with Leslie. We're gonna finalize a lot of different things. She's got some contracts already in the hopper, and she's going to start going out, doing the interviews, getting set up, doing everything that she does on her side of the house. So admittedly, I was kind of dragging my feet because really, I wanted to keep pushing forward like it might open, but I kind of had that hesitation that it wouldn't open. So about 2 weeks ago, we pulled off that to do some other stuff that was just a higher priority in the moment. The big water breaks down below town, and that sort of thing. So that's why we're a little bit behind. So I can take the punch on the chin for that.
I
But
did not think it was gonna open either, really. I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't think the state was gonna allow it, but then
So
I think they
what
said June
is-
1st, I think they were.
Can
What is
can
the
I add on?
sanit, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna add on that, on the other side, we are getting ready with new point of sales for the pool. So new cash registers closer to like what we'll talk about, or what you'll see at Tammy's, where it's like an iPad almost, it's like a screen. And some of the benefits of this are our current credit card system charges us outrageous rates. I will absolutely admit that the system chosen by whoever chose it some years ago, somebody came in to pay $50 fee. I don't remember which permit or fee it was. And then the credit card company charges $30.55 to process one transaction for the month. To be fair, their fees go smaller the more volume you have, but I still thought it was outrageous. And I'll just admit, on the phone, I'm angered. I told them, if you can't give this feedback, I'm done. I'm done. I'm the fiscal officer. I'm not going to take credit cards with you guys. So we can't take credit cards right now because I canceled it. But I'm going to get us all new cash registers with cheaper fees. It's going to be easier. People will be able to buy their pool pass online, and then it just shows up on the screen down there. And you can search by name instead of having to mail them pool season passes or whatever it may be. And it'll just be easy to use. They'll be able to just hit daily admission or Snickers bar and charge the card or take the cash. And
Plus it'd be easier to track.
easier to track. It'll automatically update on an online dashboard. So like I can see how the pool's doing at 2 p.m. in the middle of the day. And the other thing is it will be totally transferable to our other services, at least in my mind's eye. So if somebody wants to pay their rental registration online or their, I don't know what else, just any zoning fee, they can just select it on the website under like what would be called like a billing portal or something. Select which fee they're paying, pay it, and we won't have to.
Would the water bills go through this too then?
It would not,
Okay.
because that's specific to our software.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to say with a caveat, unless I figure out a way to make it work, but I haven't yet.
But they're not charging us outrageous fees on it.
No, it's like $2.
Yeah, they don't charge us at all. They charge the customer.
They charge us $3.
Huh, that's almost like a entertainment fee.
But I do actually, this is a really good segue, unless Scott wants to stay on the pool.
did I answer your questions on the pool?
Yeah, I just had one more question about I don't know if you want to call it sanitizing or distancing, or do we know how we're gonna do that with people walking in and
As
being
far as
in the pool and?
As far as I'm aware, and I could be incorrect, there's no special procedures required. However, whatever special procedures are required, I don't foresee any of them being something that we can't adjust to.
I don't think the state has set any guidelines for commissioning.
And I think June 1st, they were kind of thinking everything would be opened up and.
I think with all the chlorine and what's it called, bromine or whatever.
Yeah,
all
they-
kinds of
they
I
stuff.
guess
were
I was just
concerned
meant
about-
like talking to each other in the pool, like kids talking to each other in
And
the
there's
pool.
some studies that are saying that there's no data showing what the transference rate is in open air. I think it's less than if it's confined spaces like enclosed like this. So I think hopefully there's less of a risk, but there's always going to be a risk though. I mean, that's just it. We just know there's more, the fact that we start opening up, we know that there's going to be more cases just because people are out and about more and moving around and going back to work, et cetera. So hopefully though, and with Leslie's input, hopefully she can, she'll come up with some solutions creatively, I'm sure but you're going to have families in there that are like 4 or 5 people. They're all going to be together anyway, and,
Then you're gonna have the pool deck situation. I mean, it's.
yeah.
I
But
haven't-
with the more concrete though, we have the ability to space out the chairs that we have more, so they're not right on top of each other. So I think that, I think that helps a little bit. But we can have, I think there's no reason why we can't have sanitizer at the concession stand and in the bathrooms more and stuff, but.
Too easy.
Maybe even sell masks if we're really trying to turn a buck, you know.
Waterproof.
Not waterproof ones. How can you breathe through a water?
Snorkel.
Yes, I'm.
I know that works.
Yeah. So the reason I said a good transition is because with this updating of how we take credit card payments and hopefully taking more credit card payments, because honestly, a lot of processes would be easier if the person could just pay and we didn't have to take their cash, track their cash, write them a receipt, store the receipt, track the deposit slip at the bank, all these things on my end. On top of that, to go along with these outrageous credit card fees, I actually would like to see the city, if you go to like a coffee shop on Court Street, or if you go to some drive-throughs, it used to be like the drive-through in town, there would be a fee if you used your credit card. I understand frustration with fees for credit cards at a private business, but in a public setting, when we charge a $50 permit cost and then somebody pays the permit cost and then we pay out the fee, they really haven't paid the permit cost, right? So I would like to see the council authorize a $1 or $2 fee for using a credit card.
Fees don't go over well around here.
Well,
I mean, that's a pretty common one, anytime you go to, or not any, if you try to go to a Dollar General and get cash back, they charge you a fee now, where they didn't used to do that
Kroger
before.
charges consistent.
Yeah, well, the water bill,
And the water bill is
yeah,
$2.95.
it's $2.95.
Cedar Point charges a 15% luxury tax, so
Yeah,
So I that was one thing I wanted to put in front of the committee
Like
was
payment tax.
kind of.
authorize a credit card usage fee for using the credit card, basically outside of the water and sewer bills, whether it be paying for rental registration or paying to buy something off our lot or whatever it is. I just hate to see that we sell something at a certain face value, like a permit or something off the lot, and then the companies, it's not even the processor, it's actually Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. They want to take a huge chunk of it just for the luxury of using the card, I guess. Their fee is 3%.
did you already share the $50 permit you issued the other day?
Yeah. Well, I didn't issue the permit, but we took the payment and they took $30.55. Even this new company is going to take around 1% to 3%. So even on $100 credit card usage, they're going to take a couple bucks.
Did they charge per swipe also? Because they used to. They would take 1%, and then at the end of a month, when you would get a bill, they charge per swipe. And they also charge per batching out every night. So they actually charge 3 times.
So our current people do that. That's how all that stuff added up to $30. Clover is the company, and I'm really sick of them. We had a $400 credit card usage for income taxes, and they charged over $30 to process that one, which is crazy to me. So this new company, it's just Square. It's a very common one. You use it at Mamarini's, Tammy's, a lot of places in town already, is a percentage. And their percentage is, part of the percentage is what Visa charges them, and the part of the percentage is them. But the Visa is like 95% of it, if that makes sense.
But it's cheaper definitely than what we had.
Yeah, my understanding is like, we could use the cards all day at the pool and we would never have $100 fee like they've given. They charged us $119 in December and nobody used our credit card machine. So yeah, so I'm really tired of them.
So about 3% though?
What is it?
About 3% though is what they charge.
Yeah, it just depends on the card issuer. So I'm pretty sure Discover charges more than MasterCard or something like that, but it's between 1 and 3 for all of them. But as far as the credit card fee, my idea was on this new point of sale system would be just you would hit the payment, or let's say you hit Snickers bar at the pool, you hit Snickers bar, they're going to use a card. There would actually be a button, just like there's a button for the Snickers bar, Snickers $1, and then if you're going to use a credit card, whatever the fee you guys would put on top of it. So an easy one's just $1, I guess, but it'd be up to you really.
Well, you couldn't charge $1 for a Snicker bar. I mean, a fee.
Well, true. I guess I'm sorry. I guess
Places have a $5 minimum.
correct. True. A minimum is another. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think specifically. I was thinking in my head like if somebody comes and pays their $50 fee, they need to pay $1 for the credit card usage, but,
Just like the
you're right.
DP.
If it's a Snickers one, like the coffee shops on Court Street is what I keep thinking of because I went to OU, they would charge you $0.25 if you wanted to use your card to buy your $3 or $4 coffee, so.
The DMV is a percentage up to a max amount.
Yeah.
So it's pretty common all around.
Yeah.
Doing this. So
Sounds good.
I think it just saves us, we don't make any money. It just keeps how much we lose. And credit cards are just a convenience thing. I mean, you don't.
Did you want me to just pass on the cost? So if the fee's $3, then it's just, or 3%, then I just charge 3%?
Can we do that in the system? So like it knows if Discover charges more than, because.
I'm pretty sure.
Because then if you do have that ability, then.
I used
they
it
use
for
whatever card they want to, but just realize that the fee comes along with it based on their provider.
Yeah.
You would just have to state that somewhere, right? So
Yeah,
they would be
we would.
aware.
Yeah.
So if Discover's
They
more,
won't just take
then
it-
it's like, well, maybe you want to use MasterCard or Visa or whatever.
Yeah. I used Square when I was fixing iPhones. I'm pretty sure we could charge a percentage. I think that's what I did, but I can't remember. But I'll make sure to check. And then, but it would take an ordinance since council sets all fees by charter, that you guys would have to have an ordinance saying 3% or whatever, or passing the cost to the customer or whatever.
Let us know what you think will come out best and we'll.
I can do it. I'm gonna keep tracking on through. Scott, do you want to stop me or are you good? Okay. The one thing is I was gonna ask the committee if we could motivate, whoever needed motivated to move the water abatement policy to ordinance. So the leak insurance, $500 coverage for $30 a year.
Mr. Hunter was going to get with you, did he? Because that's what
He
he said
definitely
last time I talked to him.
We haven't had any conversations about abatement at City Hall, but
Is
we
that the
keep,
one you're talking about, the insurance that we talked
Yeah.
about?
having
He did say
cases.
he was gonna get with you.
Okay.
I can call him again.
Okay, I mean, or I can tell, if the committee's approved it, I can just say we need to get it on ordinance and have them get it to the agenda.
So, but he was going to see if there was any conflict. I think that was your question in the beginning.
Oh, you mean with state law or?
Well, as to what we already have, like if they filled their pool or if they had a real big leak. And
So,
we had
Current
adjusted.
code.
So if we did that, I thought the idea was just to get rid of all adjustments at that point because because currently,
The only incentive,
Filling your pool
the
is
only-
technically a leak. I mean,
but we don't have an, so speaking of that, unless you guys know of one, we've had that discussion today and multiple times before. There's no ordinance that allows me to adjust their rate. I only have one ordinance that I'm aware of that says very specifically that if there's a leak between the meter and the structure, the city manager may, with a verified leak, make an adjustment to the water and sewer bill by averaging out the previous 6
Right.
months.
You're correct.
So that's the only ordinance I have, I get angry landlords all the time calling me up and, trying to get me to budge on it, but I just don't have the authority to do it. So I
think
can't
it's
do
just
it.
something that's been done. I don't.
Now,
they don't have
so
the-
here's the thing, if there's a leak inside the house, it's 100% on the property owner.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or the water bills it. If it's between the house and the meter, they take an average, as long as the leak's been fixed, blah, 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 blah. And if it's street side or meter, then that's us.
and that's what the ordinance says.
And it's very contentious. There's a lot.
Yeah.
We do a lot of adjustments out there. I have a $5,000 bill sitting now with one landlord who's very upset. And I sent their meter away and had it tested by a third party and the meter come back working just as good as a new one. And, they like to say, well, your predecessor did. And I'm like, well, I'm not my predecessor. This is what the ordinance says. And I'm not making any adjustments. So we are not making any
I don't
adjustments
know
for
how you can
pool.
use that much water.
Well,
Oh, and a
if
leak.
you have a leak in the house, or
That's
an
me.
angry tenant,
Uh,
and then just crank shit on
It
before
could
you
even
go.
be, I was having like $80, $90 water bills because I needed a new toilet. And as soon as I put the new toilet in, it's 35.
that's not 5,000, but yeah.
Yeah, but still, it can,
There's a quick,
Yeah, I don't know how to answer how they got it. They thought it was, so for everybody out there in TV land, when water meters go bad, they don't spend faster. They spend slower, which is to your benefit. We lose money. So water meters
A lot of
just
money.
don't spin faster. It's just not a thing. In fact, the guy that we sent it off to third-party testing to actually called me and said, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" I said, "Absolutely, I want you to do it," because there's no way this landlord is going to accept it's your bill unless I have third-party testing. So we put it on there, small price to pay to get
And
the
it's still,
it's still, I mean, it's still a telephone discussion, but neither here nor there. So we don't do pull adjustments because there's not an ordinance for me to do it. And
Unless council wants to pass.
right, absolutely. If you guys want one, by all means, please do so. I'm just saying that I'm not cowboying over here, just waving money for this person and waving money for that person, because that's just not okay. So
So as far as I know, I mean, we've talked about it over and over. I mean, I think we're all pretty good with the
with the
insurance.
current way it is.
Well, I meant with the insurance,
Oh,
the
30
agreement.
for, what was it, 20? I thought it was gonna be 25 to make it an even number though. But I mean, it doesn't matter to
Well,
me.
30's even. 25's even.
I originally
It's not a
proposed,
quarter.
I originally proposed 30, but I don't, it's really
Yeah,
council's
it doesn't matter to me.
decision at the end.
it just takes a while to get
We're not
there.
self-insuring, are we?
No. This will just be for bill adjustments. So in other words, the idea of a bill adjustment will go away and you will only be able to get a leak adjusted off your bill if you bought into this leak insurance, basically. It's called, and that's why.
It'll only forgive up to $500.
Correct.
And you have to fix it.
And you have to prove you fixed it. That's right. This is a process where our guy will actually go out and look.
And like, you only get that once a year.
Yeah, I think it's once.
Correct.
I was pretty much just gonna follow, unless council had a very specific version they wanted, I was just gonna follow Leax's, and I think theirs is once a year.
They're all
And it's
correct.
$30 a year.
Yes. And I talked to 3 rural water providers who had these, and none of them had any cases where they paid out more than had paid in. In other words, this should not be, it's not really a profit generator. That's not anywhere close to what we would need for some of these funds that need money, but it's really more just saying it's not a liability. It's not something that would end up costing us.
So we wouldn't be paying, we just wouldn't be collecting, right?
We would take it off the water.
Right.
Yeah, it's
okay.
still an adjustment.
Right.
Yeah,
The collection, if you will, just like any insurance policy, is at the paying of the premium.
right.
But it's a set dollar amount. It's not a
Right.
percentage or whatever.
With the number of landlords in town, I have no doubt that we will have like 95% participation from landlords because they get stuck with water bills all the time.
Even as a homeowner, I would do it.
Yeah, and most people, I think, I would do it, so.
Small potatoes.
Yeah. I know.
So I can just encourage Hunter to have it drafted to ordinance.
Yep.
Would you guys prefer the whole policy be, I don't know if the whole policy needs to be in the ordinance or if you just want.
Oh, at least all the major points. at the
Right,
very
okay.
least.
And then we'll just get rid of water adjustments altogether. So it's not even, it's a moot point with that.
Yeah, there would be no incentive to sign up for it if we still had adjustments, so we
Right.
would have to do it. That's
So maybe that should be announced or,
part of,
Yeah, I think that
maybe,
should be part of the
maybe part of the
ordinance.
ordinance, yeah,
You know,
yeah. Let me write that down.
as a replacement to,
right?
I overstepped one point on credit cards. I was notified that we are out of compliance on a litany of credit card policies with the city. Nobody should be surprised to hear that. And as we're working on compliance on every front. And so I'm working with the auditor of Athens to get a set of policies and procedures for credit cards that is compliant with state law, including a new report that will be included with the auditor's report. State law for now several years has been that all credit card purchases have to be summarized, including transaction date, time, place, what was purchased, who purchased it. And that report has to be approved by the legislative body, city council. That's been several years now and we've just never done it. So we're going to start soon.
So you mean approve it after the fact or what?
Yeah, you basically just have to approve the report, but it's to bring transparency to credit card purchases.
What
And
if we don't approve it and it's already been done?
well, I mean, so I think the purpose is so that if
well,
you
you
see,
give credit cards to your employees that are trustworthy.
I think if there's a problematic purchase, I think the point is that council now knows and then can change policy or notify whoever, whatever it may
To
be.
cancel that person's card.
I've actually, I was notified a few weeks ago, but there's been way too much to work on to get that done in time for Monday's meeting. We already sort of talked about, we're gonna try and freeze some expenditures in place for a while to prevent the worst of COVID from impacting, the economic impact of COVID impacting Nelsonville, City Hall. My last thing.
So what was we gonna freeze? I guess I missed that.
Well, we were going to present, so Scott and I have been working on this. We're going to present a series of line items that basically we're going to try and not spend for several months until we know how much revenue we've lost for sure.
Oh, you don't have it ready yet, okay.
Well, yeah, we just spent the first 2 hours. It's been in conversation. We just spent the first 2 hours actually putting pen to paper today. 2.5 hours, I think. And it will, in my recollection, it will involve 0 personnel loss, 0 service loss as far as maintain current services, but it could mean delayed services, like possibly paving. Because
Right.
our weakest spot right now is gas tax revenue. Is really, we just got a gas tax check. Today's Monday. We got it Friday. It was I didn't do the math. Maybe 70% of what we were hoping. So we're talking about big loss in gas tax right now.
So
70% is not bad though.
True. I mean, I guess it could be 50 right, or 40, but.
And I just wanted to add, because I know there's a vested interest in the community for our roads, right? Jason is exploring a lot of options with his guys. A lot of alleys are a big concern for the public, and that is one of those things we're going to try with a few different alleys of regrinding, rolling, tacking them down. A couple different procedures that they found and talked to other people on the alley side. So we may be able to, because York charges $90 a ton for asphalt. We can buy grindings for $6 a ton. Now, they're not the same thing. They're not near as strong or anything like that, but for an alley, they might work. So knowing that, we're looking at options of what we can do. We're also looking at renting an asphalt machine, if that's even possible, and asphalting some of these streets ourselves instead of paying. Because, when we're buying the asphalt, it's not $90 a ton. That's what they charge. That includes delivery and all the other stuff. So we're exploring as many options as we can. I tell you, a lot of the potholes, if they're just fixed correctly, which there's a huge appetite to do, the roads wouldn't be bad per se. And, actually cutting the hole out square and, still cleaning it out, tacking it, applying it, sealing the edges, all the proper ways of doing it. That, frankly, we've had the equipment, but not necessarily the manpower in the right place. The 3 street department folks, it's not a very good operation for those 3 to go out and do that because there's more equipment than there is people. Well, now that we've combined the resources, he's able to, pull off certain folks and go over here, make sure this has enough to get by while maintaining essential services on the water supply. So having those 2 together intermingled allows him to provide a better level of service to the community at frankly, a cheaper rate than before. So we're going down each one of those rabbit holes now. Plan to let you guys know during street committee when we have that. So I will tell you one thing for certain that we're looking at is weather permitting next week, if not the week after, he's going to start filling potholes. Canal Street will be first, followed by Columbus Street and Fayette Street, just as they go. Basically from the main artery into town toward the square, getting those in first, specifically because we have some big ditches that we created for water hole or water line replacements. So by getting all that in there first, they'll get their system down. I also want to repaint Canal Street, the lines on Canal Street. So just, to get the appearance for folks coming into town to make it look a lot nicer. And then from there, systematic approach, street by street by street, trying to keep it in a rotation. But it's likely we'll be patching or working on alleys all summer long and staying very busy with those projects.
So we're gonna spend money on alleys though, correct? I mean, is that
It's
Talking about chipping and seal.
a priority.
Yeah.
out of the paving budget or no?
Well, I mean, I don't think we have the plan completely
Okay.
formalized. His side is what you guys and him decide what we're going to do. But as far as the budget goes, it's deciding how much we think we can afford and when we can afford it is really the biggest takeaway at the moment. I mean, he's right. Jason and him have some I wish him and Jason were around 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I started on council, because some of their ideas to get more done with the same amount of money is really awesome. I mean, I guess, especially since the camera's on, I should have said there won't be a stoppage of road work in what we're trying to come up with. It's about the $100 and some $1,000 set aside for paving. Is it coming out of funds that are funded by the gas tax? And if we put all that money into paving, 2 weeks from now, not only would we have a negative balance, but we probably end the year with a negative balance in those funds. So it's more about how's the money spent, how much can be spent, and then how much product can we get for that? Because I don't want to be in a position where next year, not that this is how it happened, but if we did nothing and we spent our street funds into a negative balance, then next year all you're doing is catching up. You can't do anything. Plus the state would have something to say about it. So the general fund too is the perennial problem child. The general fund in its current budget ends pretty close to zero, way too close to zero for us to be comfortable with our new revenue expectations. And some changes around the edges there can keep it to a balance that should, I hope, keep the state off our back. And then I actually have my last proposal, unless there's any questions on the street still.
I just want to throw one last thing. We are analyzing every option, every tool we have in the toolbox when it comes to paving. Some of the streets we've looked at that it makes sense for us to go in and fill the big holes and patches and everything else, and then maybe hire a company to come in if we can't rent the machine to do it and just have them top it. For example, if they were just to top Grosvenor Street, it would have been significantly less. However, they had to put so much fill in there because the street was so out of whack. We're looking at, I'm not saying High Street's getting paved, but it's one of them that we looked at. If we went and patched all those holes and then just did, 1 or 2 inch cap over the top of it, High Street would be really nice, but that would be a combination of us working on it and hiring somebody to work on it. So we're just we want to get the most out of every single dollar that we're putting into the ground for paving, and with the understanding that we may need to keep some of that in the coffers for next year, just so we keep that side of the house from going broke. That's all.
Yes, agreed.
Just trying to be cautious and optimistic at the same time.
So my last proposal, I'm actually if I'm being honest, I'm kind of nervous to propose because it's a big idea in a very uncertain time for the world and for our city. And so I want to start by talking about the need we have, and then talking about why I think Rita possibly fills this need. And Rita's called the Regional Income Tax Association Agency, maybe. So our current need, I don't have to go into too much detail as far as the theft in office. That's obvious. It's easy to tell how much, we don't know how much exactly, but it's easy to tell there's money missing, and that's a problem. The bigger problem for us at this point is a normal income tax collection. And I say normal for a reason, because most folks can keep up with this compliance. And unfortunately, Nelsonville, as far as I can tell, hasn't been keeping up before I was on city council. Normal collection would identify new residents, would work with partner agencies to identify new residents, new businesses, get them registered. There would be a process for if you're signing up for a water bill, you're also signing up for an income tax account in a city with an income tax. Just like, the state probably has a file on all of us income taxpayers, the city should have a file. There should be thorough record keeping of income tax payments, income tax filings. The software should show all filings. It should show when somebody's paid, when they haven't paid. It should show penalties accruing when they haven't paid or filed. And all these things I'm talking about, I should have said at the beginning, are state required. We don't get the option as a city to levy penalties on income tax delinquencies. It is required, and the state is allowed to take it over and charge us for it if we don't do it. So that hanging over our heads. There should be excellent software that's not 12 years old or older. I think it's timestamped like 2004. It should have all the data for our citizens, when they paid, when they filed, how much they owe, how much we owe them, how much credit they have, addresses, phone numbers, social securities. Just everything you can imagine for efficient income tax collection. We have almost none of that. We have almost none of it. I tried thinking of a way I could say this so that like people at home could take advantage of this fact, but there's no way for me to say it besides the actual truth of it. The problem this brings is there's no fees, there's no penalties, there's very little software collection. I'm going to use myself as an example because, well, it's actually against the law to use anyone else as an example, but myself as an example, I've worked out of town every year until this year. So you're okay. So I have to come in, file. Well, everybody has to file, but when I come in, I have to pay extra, I would call it, because my employer didn't withhold City of Nelsonville taxes at Texas Roadhouse until I asked them to. But when I wasn't getting withheld, I needed to come in and pay the difference of what I owed between the credit and what would have been owed if I made that money in town, which is 1.25%. That should be recorded. My only filing recorded in the software, despite the fact that I have them sitting at home and I have cash receipts for paying income tax in cash, is 2017. I've lived here since 2000. I've lived in town since 2013. I've been here my whole life. So it's a problem. It's a major problem. If you would ask me the difficulty of telling who owed what and what we owe to somebody else, in other words, what credits do people have on file? On a scale from 1 to 10, I'd say 9 or 10. It's almost impossible. It keeps me up at night. So this is on my end, this is what I need. As an auditor, this is what's required of me and of the city. What we need as a city is efficient revenue collection because the general fund has been depleting for years and years and years. It used to be $2 to $3 million. It's at, as of today, actually, I'm not sure, I checked it today, but as of recently, $75,000 or whatever, compared to $2 million. It funds our fire department, our police department, city manager, auditor's office, code enforcement, utilities, city hall. When was the last time we did city hall? Improvements to the roof so it stops leaking in parts. You just name it, on and on. So I just wanted to paint that as the need. We need these things. I can't collect, like on water bills, we charge a 10% penalty for lake water bills, right? And that is a very vital part of funding our water. It's calculated into how we fund our water system, is that some people are going to not pay by the due date. We're going to levy those fees and we can project that. Can't do that with income tax. I can't tell you if there's ever been a late fee charged on anyone. So that said, you can't project it. The amount continuously declines. People know they can get away with it, so they stop filing. I've had said to me that since I've been elected auditor, actually by a tax accountant who doesn't live in town, by the way, that basically their clients know they can just get away with it when they work or live in the city of Nelsonville. So that's the need. It's bad news, but it can be fixed. This agency I looked into before I was elected and didn't know at the time how much it was needed. It's called Regional Income Tax Agency, RITA. They are the largest municipal tax collection agency in the state of Ohio. They collect for over 50% of cities and villages, including Trimble, Middleport, Bremen, Wellston, and there was Reynoldsburg, a lot of places up and down Route 33. They offer services. The most important to me are taxpayer and business registration. They know when people move into state, when they move in to Nelsonville, when they don't, based off of comparisons against state tax information and federal tax information. Two things that as city auditor, I'll never have the power to do because the state house is never going to allow me to, the feds are never going to give a local state auditor power over income tax returns to the IRS. So, and then they register them, they give them an account, they give them a file, they can tell what they owe, when they owed it, whether we owe them a credit or a refund.
So does that mean someone else is doing it besides you?
It would mean somebody's assisting us. Yeah. So to be in my defense, I shouldn't be personally doing the income tax by myself. not only do we want a balance, but it is, it's just it's a mess. I'm just gonna say it. It's just such a mess. I'm sure if you get any of the folks who work at any local tax agency, like not around the camera, I'm sure they'd agree that it's a total mess. There has to be correspondences. I don't know. I guess I don't know how to.
Care if I jump in and give you a hand?
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, this company, they find everybody, they
It's a
collect,
nonprofit too. Sorry, I
Right.
should have said.
they collect, they have access to all the proper systems, they make sure everything's filed in accordance with the law, everything's up to snuff. They're pretty squared away. They're the ones that took my money in Reynoldsburg. And, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They make a percentage. So I don't know if he said it or if it's in there, when they took over Pomeroy, they found immediate 15% increase. So even finding that 15% increase, even taking their fee, which was based off a percentage out of their total monies coming in, they still made more money. So it takes that man-hour burden off of us and puts it somebody here that has more resources. Basically, the reason why they have more access to all the stuff to make it, and because they do it all the time, they have a much better polished product than we do. So the amount of time we save can be spent on things like payroll and all these others. But the reality, the big thing is they are completely compliant. And when the auditors go look at them, they're all up to snuff and there's no questions about it. And if there's something not right, they take care of it. And the other thing is they have the resources to sniff out new businesses, sprout up, all around town. And they immediately go do it. And they make sure all the withholdings are taken out. Where right now we're doing it kind of here. It's kind of hodgepodge, the big ones, Rocky and the college, not such a problem, but it's like he said, if you work in
Athens, Logan, Lancaster, a large portion of our population, they told me on the phone today, they were like, we can tell easily you have a large proportion of your population that would work outside of the city because we're a small city, we're confined by Wayne National, we don't have a ton of employers, although we're fortunate, very fortunate for the ones we have. And we have no power to basically say how much money did all your people make and that work here or that live here, and did they pay their income tax?
Yeah, I worked in Columbus before this job, and they took $1,000 from me in 4 months' time, and they didn't take any money for Nelsonville. That was all for the city of Reynoldsburg. So you're welcome.
Because Reynoldsburg is a member, yeah.
Yes.
So what Rita will do, in my opinion, besides the benefit that Scott mentioned, which was actually Middleport, but next door, it's okay. Middleport saw in their very first income tax return, or distribution is what they call it, a 15% increase in overall collection in their very first one. For us, 15% would be over $100,000 in an annual basis, all to the general fund.
Minus their fees.
That was on top of their fees. The 15% was net fees. So they actually saw a bigger increase in 15. Then you have the option. The city has the option of maintaining collection power, which I actually like to maintain some of the powers, and basically work with them as a team. So in other words, instead of outsourcing to an agency, we're working with an agency that has some powers that I don't have to get collections, to make sure we're getting the money. But if you use some of their legal department, Middleport saw an additional, Middleport's much smaller than us, but the first increase was $30,000. At the tax time, when they signed up to use Rita's legal department to make sure that delinquencies were notified that, hey, you're out of compliance with state law, the city has the right to sue you, whatever, which the city does, we just never do, for people who've gone 20 years without paying a dime. They actually brought in $40,000 in 1 month. So this is a city that brings in $300,000 for their income tax for the entire year. So honestly, the city of Nelsonville would consider $40,000 a life raft. And we bring in 1.5 million, or 5 times that. So I asked them today the proportion of municipalities that see an increase in collections when they start working with Rita, and they said over 95%. Because there's so many people who know that they can file their feds and state taxes, and they don't have to file with the local government.
The Columbus people.
Yeah,
I could have got away with it.
They just work elsewhere, and then they can get away with it because we have no jurisdiction over the city of Athens, or employers in the city of Athens. So I think that's a humongous benefit, which would be increased collections. I think this is something that could be a life raft for us. It's a yearly agreement. I asked them today a series of questions like, who owns the data if we don't like what we got over a year? And we own the data. So everything, all the new accounts, the filings, the organization, the system, if we didn't like it after a year, it's all ours and we can collect based off that information. That was incredibly valuable to me because honestly, if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have even brought it today.
How much do we pay on our crap software? That we wouldn't have to anymore?
I thought we had new software supposedly coming in for this.
We did.
Well, we're hoping.
Okay.
The state won't move us. The state,
It was, yeah,
We were supposed to save a bunch of money on it.
it will save a ton. We pay like $15,000 a year on our software. UAN is what it's called. We can move to it pretty much as soon as the state allows us. They're not allowing us until we finish a forensic audit with our current investigation. And they want to know how much money, as I want to know how much money we actually have separated in all the funds. And you just don't want to start with bad numbers, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of information on Rita. It's a 3% fee. It's only on collections. That's one thing I really like about it is that Rita has a lot of incentive to find folks who aren't paying because it's a percentage fee. And then of course we get the other 97% of everything that we've missed. I can tell you now that I have found in just random stacks in what we call the dungeon, in the former income tax office, of just tax filings on the desk from 5 years ago, 4 years ago. They're still sitting on the desk and they owe money, and there's no record anywhere that that money was ever paid. So that tells you that the amount of teeth that in general, the community feels that the city has in regards to income taxes, that they feel comfortable filing a $500, we owe $500 to you, and then never paying it. You could not get away with that anywhere. I mean, anyway, some of the other benefits of Rita is they have partnerships with all the major online income tax softwares. So in other words, when you file on TurboTax and you put 45764 Backstreet, Nelsonville, Ohio, it will tell you you owe an income tax and you have to pay this just the same as the school, state, and feds. TurboTax, H&R Block, all the big ones, Hewitt, and then they send the money to Rita, who's got that partnership with them, who then distributes to us twice a month. And if I'm being honest, I think it's a really good deal, but I'm hoping council will come around to
It's
see.
a very good efficiency move forward if you guys decide to do it.
Even if we don't like it after the first year, we have a system. And at the moment, that's way better than what we have right now.
And this would actually be for next year, correct?
So the start date they have is September 1st. So most of it, would be 2021. But the September start date would involve mostly withholding accounts. So like when, I don't want to keep picking on Rocky since we mentioned Rocky, but whoever. Texas Roadhouse, when Texas Roadhouse files, this is how much money we withheld from our employees, Rita would start assisting with that this fall. I think we'd see immediate benefit because employers like those places, Rita will just after 30 days, we'll be able to see there's people living in the city, not paying city taxes, who are making money, and we're going to contact that employer. And it's just different. It's just different when your local income tax office from Nelsonville contacts his employer in Athens versus an agency that handles half of the cities in Ohio contacts the same employer and says, hey, we want you to start withholding.
And they're very stern in their letters as well. I may have got one or two.
They also look into 1099s.
Yeah, 1099 business contractors. We actually have an example. I don't actually want to violate the privacy, but we have an example of contract work being done who's subcontracting, not for the city, who it's pretty dubious, even after meeting with them in person, it's kind of dubious if we got all of the paperwork, permits, and income tax collections from those subcontractors. I got one, and I'm pretty sure there's more than one subcontractor working on this project.
We work pretty in tandem with one another. So I go out on a lot of these different job sites, and when new folks come in, as an example, we've got a contractor out of Wellston getting ready to come up and work on storm drains. They're up there doing their site survey and everything else, and first thing I tell them is you need to talk to the auditor. Here's his number. You need to be registered in town before you.
Well, that's it. So I think if out-of-town businesses have to register, then it's automatic. Here's your registration packet. You collect a small fee for registering them. And in that packet tells them they have to withhold Nelsonville city taxes and all this other stuff.
And they got, I mean, now Jason's in that position, but before Jason, the other guys that were in that position, we're on the front lines. I don't know if it's been done in the past, but now knowing what he needs on that side, we're attacking it from multiple fronts, and I won't say the company, but I was driving in your neighborhood, actually in your guys' house the other day, and I'm like, hey, we haven't got your quarterly income tax. And it was just some mid-level supervisor guy who called the owner, who called Taylor post haste and was mildly worried, and we got it squared away, and that sort of thing. But it's just constant reminder of what's going on. So
I think too, and maybe I did a bad job of selling. That's the benefit for my office, and if my office benefits in collections, it benefits you guys, it benefits fire department, police, city manager. I think I hope I showed the virtuous cycle that it gives us internally. I think some of the benefits to the city are almost all online income tax filing, meaning like I have no idea if C&J works with Rita. I assume they do if they have some customers from Trimble or Wellston's maybe a little far, but accounting firms, instead of corresponding individually via paper with every income tax office for their customers, they'd rather just get it filed and get it done, get it online, and it's done.
So they
Rita
file it
offers
online like their state and federal.
Yeah, so Rita's online. It's anybody doing TurboTax will be captured in this net. I can tell you for sure. If anybody in this room uses TurboTax, you probably know it as yourself. If you use TurboTax, there's no mechanism. I mean, seriously, from start to finish, there's no mechanism to make sure that person pays their city income tax unless we're going to somehow find a list of those people and then authorize Gary Hunter to sue them, which doesn't sound like a good product for our citizens, right? We want to capture them at the source and make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. So online is better and cheaper for our accounting firms, of which we have, my understanding was the largest independently owned single site accounting firm and tax agency in the state in our city borders. It's cheaper for the resident who doesn't have to correspondence over paper with us, stamp, calling in during COVID over and over and over and over. And it's just convenient. They'll have an account where they can see all their filings. They know what they owe. They know what we owe them. And then I have full access to the data, obviously, because I would still be working with collections. So it's not like we're just handing it all over. I'd still be able to get in there and like say, hey, make sure Scott paid his taxes this month or whatever.
So the money that they're collecting for taxes, they get a percentage of that money as part of, that's their fee.
Yes.
And then if there are people that are not paying, is there additional fees?
It depends.
that's the late fees and everything else, right, that they get them for?
Yeah, there'll be fees on the individual, but I think for us, is what the question was for
So
additional costs for us.
So like, yeah, okay, there's late fees or penalties, and then what are we collecting from that point? Is it are they taking additional money? Is it the same percentage or?
Good question. So it'll help, I think, to walk through a quick timeline of what it would look like for, let's say, myself. So it's January for me. I open my mailbox. I'm going to get a postcard reminder from Rita saying you are a resident of the city of Nelsonville. We have, so according to our records, you made money somewhere. I don't know if it's a postcard, but I'm just saying a reminder. You made money somewhere, so here's your link with your account number. This is where you'll be able to file, or via paper, it'll have the information. If it comes time to April, you're going to get a second reminder on April 1st. We haven't gotten your filing, so on and so forth. This is all included in our current cost, which is 3%. There's no choice of packages. This is just what Rita offers at this point. If the person files, they filed, they pay online, it gets to us, whatever. they mail a check, it gets to us. They don't file or they don't pay, they're gonna get a letter, basically an invoice. It's gonna say, you owe us money because you didn't file, or you did file and you didn't pay, whatever the situation is. Still all included. There's 3 notices that says basically by the 3rd one, you are like really outside the bounds of the due date. Under Ohio law, there are there's penalties for tax evasion, whatever. If after 3 invoices, notices, 2 reminders, 3 invoices, this person is still not paying or corresponding with them, there's 2 options. One is they can turn it over to my office for more rigorous collection. So they understand that since most of their cities and villages they work with are under the 20,000, they work with a lot of the small folks that we know them. They understand that. So if I know Scott over on Railroad Street's not paying, I'm going to go down to Scott or mail him, you know what I mean. But we're going to be able to get a hold of him and say, hey, you're late. You've been notified many times. This is how much you owe, and this is not going away. And if they don't respond to us either, there is what's called their, I'm forgetting the name because my blood sugar is getting low, but it's basically an additional collections program where $8 per customer, it's 6 months or whatever it is. So we're talking about fall of next year. Let's say we have 100 people who just have refused. And at this point, I imagine we've already collected a lot more than we collected this year or many recent years. It's $8 a person. So for 100 people, it might be $800, and they enter what is their really kind of strict. This is where the customer service goes out the window. This is the city has the right to sue you. The city plans to sue you if you don't pay, and you need to pay. It might be longer than 6 months. I think it was 6 or 9, but whatever it was, it's $8. The average return per citizen who enters into the serious delinquency program is $43, is what they said. So 4 or 5 times what we put into it.
So I think the short answer is yes, but we would have the option to go forward or not go forward on an individual basis.
And we'd be fully within our rights to turn this list over to Mr. Hunter and say, put these people up in civil court. But the hourly difference, the cost to us, I think, would be pretty prohibitive, I would think.
Well, only if you get a lump them all together.
Right. And that would be 100, I forget what it is, 100 some an hour versus $8. And
So that was going to be my next question. So it goes civil court versus being cited in the mayor's court or something like that.
Mhm.
That's like cited.
And we've been within our rights to do this the whole time. There's just
We didn't have the
No
resources and
procedure.
know-how.
the savings to the general. Let me not the savings. The amount of money we would have spent with that position specifically dedicated to income tax is more than Rita would charge us. So Scott and I have already been throwing at you different organizational ideas for the 2 positions over there. So it's a little more complicated than that, but as far as we set aside $5,000 for postage this year alone for income tax, just income tax. And then my office has a $2,000 or $3,000 postage line item to where the auditor's supposed to be really involved in that process too. So just in postage, you're talking about almost a fifth, a sixth of the cost of Rita is just saved in postage.
We don't take, they take care of it. If it's part of their fee, they take it
Yes,
out of it.
there is no fee Rita will charge until we say, enter the serious delinquency program with this batch of people. And that's at $8 a person. Everything is covered in, their estimate is $49,000 based off our current income tax collections at 3% of it, 3.1 to 3.43. The reason why there's a 0.33 difference is, the difference in that is how hard it is for them to get started based off our very bad set of records. So to them, they were kind of like, we don't really know how this is going to go. And I didn't have a good answer about how it would go either. But the difference per year would be $4,000. Between those 2 numbers is $4,000. So we're still talking a pretty small, in my opinion.
I like the squeaky clean records as well. And if something does, they have insurance as well. So if they screw up something on their end, that we could go after.
Yeah, and so they've been around since 1971. It's the only agency like this in the state. It's the only one sanctioned by the state of Ohio. I know Scott is a big proponent because of his own personal experience. Like they knew where he was, when he worked, how much he made, and by the way, it's how much you owe the city of Reynoldsburg. And the city of Reynoldsburg really
Their
not do
taxes are way
anything.
higher than ours.
Yeah, they are way higher than ours. I think it's 2.25.
Plus their school tax.
Plus the school tax. And yeah, like, I mean, and he didn't even have to experience, I assume, I'm not going to out his tax situation, I have no idea, but he didn't have to experience their very drawn out collections process. But it involves multiple notices, an online account. I think it would be very convenient for our accounting businesses in town who probably think we're, can I say on the camera, pain in the ass to deal with for the last 10 years. And then if we don't like it, I mean, I would be the first one to admit, if I don't like it, I'll come to you guys in January and say, hey, this is not what I thought. And we should take the record keeping and the new system and the online system and the online accounts and take all this information and we should just do it ourselves that they've set up for us.
Bueller.
Yeah, I'm fine with moving forward with it. I think that it's unfortunate that, you know, we're in a situation that we don't have very good records, but it is what it is. And it's time to move forward from this point and going forward, making sure that we have good records.
49,000 that comes directly out of the taxes that they collect, and they're the ones that collect them?
Yeah, they'll collect the payments. Yep.
So let's say I go to C&J Taxes every year, and they do my taxes, and they take care of all that crap. So if I still use C&J Taxes, they would send whatever to Rita?
Yep. And my understanding is, I could be wrong. I mean, maybe everybody has differences in how it operates. You know, not every agency is going to please everyone. But my understanding is that it's really easier for a lot of tax agencies to use this in accounting firms because.
So from a personal experience, so they sent me 2 letters. I didn't know who the heck they were. That's why I didn't respond to the first one. But at the end of the day, I didn't have to fill out any forms for Reynoldsburg at all. When I worked up there, it was all taken care of. They did it all. They just said, we don't owe you any money back. You don't owe us any more money. No action required at this time. And it just happened behind the scenes. I don't know what they did, but they took care of it. So from a customer's perspective, it's actually really easy, especially if you do hire a CPA or some sort of accountant to take care of all your stuff. It's just plumbed in there with it. So
And
my experience was
so
good.
let me get this straight then. So we don't actually pay the 49,000. They collect the taxes, send you one big check minus the 49.
Basically, they'll send it twice a month, essentially, the 1st and the 15th.
So it'll just come out, their percentage will come out every time.
So there's no money out of our pocket up front.
Correct. That's my understanding. I haven't seen an invoice or anything of where we would pay up front. And they certainly didn't mention it. I've talked with them multiple times now. So I'm going to assume no. And then the thing is about government accounting is it will have to be in the budget. Because in government accounting, even if you don't actually spend the money out, you have to track it as if it was still money in and money out. It's a bear to do for the sewer plant project. A lot of the contractors just get paid by the government. We still have to record it as money in, money out. Right. Anyway, I'm just saying that because if you guys decide that this is a good idea, in the budget, it will still have to have that number right. or an estimate because it has to be recorded.
I'm not really sold on it, but I don't have a problem at all taking it to full council and letting everybody vote on it.
Agreed. I'll let council vote on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no out of pocket, I'm sure that they can find $49,000 worth of people that haven't been paying.
In Middleport. I mean, I love Middleport. It's one of my favorite towns that I went around in the campaign and it's tiny. It's 20-some hundred, just a few workers really retired. And how they squeezed out of $300,000 total collection on typical year, how they squeezed 40 and then 30 on top of that. There's just got to be people not paying. And so that's a huge increase for them. I actually talked to the fiscal officer. Sharon, from Middleport, and she said it's been like a godsend because when everyone else in Meigs County was cutting staff or going to volunteer departments and different things, Middleport was hiring. And believe it or not, Middleport actually has more full-time employees than us, and they're less than half our size. So to me, it just seemed like all signs pointed to they were getting efficient collection in a way that was really benefiting them.
All right, well, let's get it right up into one ordinance and take to council.
So you're gonna have Mr. Hummer.
Yeah, they have a sample of, it's like a, I can't think of the word, intent to move forward ordinance that council has to pass.
Okay.
And at no point, I don't think we're committed to anything until we're like, I'd let you know if it was a commitment.
Sounds good.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a lot. I know it's a big.
Questions? Does anybody know? Scott? Have we got-
No, actually nothing but comments from other people that have used it. So, one person on here said that their employer actually yelled at them because the employer didn't want to take out this Nelsonville city taxes, which mine wasn't interested either when I worked in Columbus. And then another person on here has dealt with Rita in the past and said it was overall a good experience. And let's see.
I asked them today about customer service. I said, a tax agency probably doesn't have the most amazing reputation for customer service in the world. I mean, think the IRS and state taxes. And they actually said they train their employees and set up the system to be extremely friendly because they want a very big difference for the folks who don't want to comply. So that the person can feel the difference after they've been told 5 times that this is state law. Then you can finally say, look, the law says we can see you guys. And the friendliness kind of goes out the door. And it's pretty effective. So they said in 2019, out of $21 million owed for some collection of cities, I didn't have all the numbers in front of me, but for a collection of cities that went into this delinquency program, $21 million was owed to them, and they got over 20 million collected. So it was like 96% of what was owed from people who refused to pay ended up paying. It was pretty effective.
Any more comments you need to?
Nope, nothing on this side. I know we're trying to wrap things up, but I did want to throw one last thing out. We talked about trees at the last one, and for whatever reason, it just didn't get the full council for the 1,500. But since then, I've had more tree complaints come in, had the tree commission go out and look at it. I know we're really tight on money this year and next year. I would highly recommend that you guys actually just create a line item for tree maintenance so we can start maintaining and getting ahead. Or maybe it's there, maybe it has nothing in it. I just haven't
We
seen.
haven't even been able to cave yet, Scott, so we can't do trees.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, are these trees really the city's situation?
Yes.
Okay.
I
So
looked at that one on Fort Street, just talking about what, I didn't see anything wrong with that. What was it you wanted to do? That
So the one, it's across from fruit,
Yeah.
right? So it's overhanging. So the 2 big trees
Mhm.
are, they just need pruned.
Okay,
Because
not
they're,
cut down.
no
Okay.
cut down. And then if you're standing in Fruit's lot and you're looking at those 2 big trees, there's a small maple off to the right.
Mhm.
That's the one that needs to come down because, for whatever reason, it's doing, I wish I had Nan's notes in front of me, but it was her recommendation, take it down. And she had the whole reasoning why to do it. And then we got, I'm spacing the street, and she went out and checked out the other street complaints that we got as well, and they confirmed. So my process, until I figure out another way of doing it, if need be, is when somebody complains about a tree, I contact Nan. She goes and checks it out. She sees if it's our tree, and she makes a recommendation at that point. Do we prune it? Or number one, is it our tree? Do we prune it? Do we cut it down? And so on and so forth. So right now, other than that maple, the rest of them are just pruned. I think the 2,500 would give me a little bit of, so instead of the 1,500, do a full 25. That would actually give me a little bit of money on the backside to prune another tree or 2, because she has a whole queue of trees that need trimmed. There's no way we could do them all. It just wouldn't be feasible. But we'd be able to get a few more trees within that $2,500. She's wanting to hire. She's not wanting. Let me rephrase that. She recommended that we hire an arborist that comes in and does it because of the time of year. We don't want to kill a tree in the process of pruning it, which would cost us more money in the long run. So if we have a list of trees stacked up and we get somebody to come and give us a bid for all of them, basically we'll stop wherever the money runs out, you know, so we'll get $2,500 worth from whatever company will give us the best deal. But, excuse me, but they can do it all at once, so we get more bang for our buck instead of doing a little here and a little there. You know, we get somebody in town for one full day or two, if you will, to prune the trees rather and clean them up.
Rita will get all their information and collect the taxes. Oh, sorry.
Yes,
I like that.
Rita's good.
They're really good.
I mean, I would be okay with it only because I already see what you guys teaming up in the city, what you've been able to do as far as cost savings and generating additional revenue. I mean, it's kind of not the highest priority, I feel like, on my list, but you know, if you think you can pull it off and get it done, and it's gonna look good and it'll be noticeable and, you know, it'll benefit the city, I'd be supportive of it.
Well, and how much are we paying after some of these storms roll through? A cleanup that basically didn't want an interest started to trim up.
Yeah.
whatever.
A tree on each side of me last week
Yeah,
on Poplar Street.
poplar.
So that's a loaded question with lots of, it's actually, I'm glad, it was like a perfect segue. If we start maintaining our trees, we have significantly less branches falling. And as you know, depending on where it's at, so here's pretty much the policy that I've put out going forward. You know, if the fire department gets called out because a tree hit some lines and it fell, and the power company clears the lines and it's small enough for the fire department to cut it and move it out of the street, then they're going to move it out of the street to clear the way. If it requires equipment, we're calling people in to move it, you know, if it's that big. So we've had multiple branches fall out and hit people's cars. Even in my short time here, every time I refer them over to our insurance company as directed by our attorney. So I do that. And I really don't know what happens a whole lot other than I can assume that those folks do not get any money. And the reason why is we have a significant deductible. And so here's one for you. We haven't got the bill yet. It probably won't come till this fall, but all the water stuff that happened down on the east end that we've been doing, we were checking different valves, and in the process of checking different valves, it turned on water to one of those structures down there, the red structures that used to be the diner a long time ago on the right-hand side, just past the point. And it actually sprayed water inside there and damaged all the drywall inside and doors and you name it. And it was roughly $5,900. It was either $5,600 or $5,900 worth of damage. Insurance standard procedure called McFadden. McFadden went through the process with them, determined that yes, it was the 56. We'll just use the lower number for the sake of discussion, $5,600. You have a $10,000 deductible. We're going to pay the $5,600 now, and we will send you the bill later this year. So we have that bill coming down the line for an insurance claim. So there is definitely value in getting proactive with our trees, not only on overtime, but, you know, we actually do smash somebody's car, you know, the big truck or the Shermanator truck, you know. It's the maintenance is cheaper in the long run. And this 2,500 is really not going to put a dent in what we need to do, but it'll be a start. And then next year, I highly recommend whoever's sitting in this seat and you guys actually create a line item in the budget, work with the tree commission and set up the same thing. Here's our concerns, trees, you know, they prioritize them as the most dangerous all the way down. And then we just start knocking them off from the budget, you know, most critical, you know, and there's a couple different ways of doing critical, you know, is it close to damaging a house or falling on a car or hurting somebody where it's a high traffic area, you know, I mean, I couldn't imagine if we actually, one of those things dropped and hit somebody. So, do the prioritization of the most severe, likely something to happen to the worst, and then just start chipping away at it. We got to start somewhere. And 2,500, you know, it's a small dent, maybe next year, you know, if we can do it, maybe 5,000 would take care of some of it, but it won't take care of all of it. I mean, this is expensive work that I feel has been not really taken care of a whole lot. You know, our city workers get out there and do what they can, and they do a great job, but they're not arborists. And frankly, you know, AEP came out today and cleared 2 trees off our pump house number 2 down by the city pool, because they were entangled in the lines. We tried to take it down, but it was just outside of our skill level. So, you know, Jason contacted Asplin, and who, you know, is hired by AEP. I contacted AEP. They went out and looked at it and said, yeah, no problem, we'll take care of it. You know, so we're trying to use every tool we have in the toolbox. The one that's on Poplar Street, you know, the one fell in the road immediately, and then they cut another big chunk off of it. It was essentially 3 chunks, and now they need to go back and take the last whole tree down because it's all rotten on the inside. So I just think that trees are something that we need to, you know, get triage and then start leaning forward and come up. You know, even one suggestion was maybe put aside a little bit of money, maybe $500 for planting new trees as well, but make them specific line items so everybody can see
Make
exactly
sure
where
that
they're
the
going.
root system is an encumbrance to our paving.
That's where the arborists
Yes.
is handy too, so.
Yeah, it's just trying to be deliberate in what we do as a city instead of reactive.
I
You know,
agree. I'm all for that.
I'm okay with that, grant to the maybe 25 for the appropriation.
I'll get with you to figure out where to pull it from, and then we'll send it to Gary. Of course, you guys will all be CC'd on it.
I have 2 items, if we're moving on to new business.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just edited that.
I know, steal my thunder. I was gonna bring that up. I would ask for, Becky's going around boarding up a lot of these homes. She's out of material that she bought last year. She just poured one up today with Poplar, and she has several more. So she only has $1,000 budget, operating budget for her whole thing. I was gonna ask for another 1,000 for her budget because she has to buy more material, and she's gonna spend that 1,000 she has just buying plywood to board up more houses.
Who's doing the labor?
Huh?
Who is
We
doing the labor?
We do it.
the labor. So she takes out one person, herself, and the person, they boarded up. Last year, I boarded up a house for her last year.
So what happened today specifically is Chris went up and cleared the house, and 2
They
of
even
our,
drug people out.
yeah,
I believe I seen that on my way home from Kroger's.
So they're
The
working,
greenhouse.
living in it.
Oh, it was atrocious.
it's horrible. There's
There are
trash
things
piled
coming
almost to
out
the
from
ceiling.
In the middle of
That's
the
the
fence
green
with their
monster, right?
backpacks when
Yes,
outside.
yes. Imagine the worst scene you could imagine, like a Hollywood set could set up in a house, and that's what it looked like.
And she has a couple more on the list, so I'm just saying that
Several.
we need to help out with that. And
I'd be all for that.
So is somebody checking the back? So I mean, this isn't really finance, but is someone checking the back to those every once in a while?
So-
Like the police or anyone or the.
It depends. So it depends on who owns the house. So,
well, she's
I mean,
boarding
to
them
make
up
sure the
with,
boards aren't like
Well,
just
she's
tore
put-
off and.
oh yeah,
she's
yeah.
putting them up with 3-inch screws with star bits. So unless they have the special bit and an impact, which, yeah, somebody stole my impact, so they might have an impact.
Yeah, someone stole my impact.
But, you know, it's gonna take them a minute to get them boards off. They're not gonna just kick them off.
It makes it a lot easier to do a drive-by inspection. You can just drive by, and if there's no disturbance to the boards, you just keep on trucking. A lot of those streets also, or a lot of those houses, I should say, the yards are trashed in them, and she's working out different ways to clean up the yards as well. And, you know, as far as she pays for the dumpster out of her budget as well, which there's a huge huge dumpster on the backside of the shed out here. That's hers for putting that type of stuff in. And so that will be coming in the near future because we are also responsible for mowing the grass on a lot of that stuff. So you can't mow the grass if the yard's full of crap.
You use them for dumpsters.
Her dumpster back there is it's 20, the biggest one, the real tall one.
I know that. I know the size of them. You can use our service.
Oh, it's Rumpke, the same ones that does all of our stuff.
I don't know if you have to use Rumpke on something like that.
Yeah, I think you do. They've got a franchise agreement.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've got Trace, where I'm at. And there's other dumpsters. Well, not for, this is for tear down trash. This isn't for house refuge. I don't think for house, for stuff like that, I don't know if you have to use Rumpke.
I'm not sure, and
You could check on that. I don't know what Rumpke charges.
I'm not sure you're off the top of my head.
I know, Trace does not charge me a monthly fee. It just charged me a flat fee, fill it up, one fee, no monthly charge.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, we can definitely look into that as well. And speaking of dumpsters and cleaning up and everything else, maybe also something just to get on the record to consider for next year, possibly a line item for house tear down, you know.
Yes.
Maybe we can only do one the first year and two the second year. I don't know. It just depends on what the money looks like next year when the budget's
yeah,
written.
we have to get through this year first.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised though, some of those houses that you may be considering, are already in the pipeline for the land bank.
Mhm.
And I've been working close with Rick on trying to, you know, they've got some federal monies that just came back through, but we've been working on some strategies to get funding for them. Plus, we've also been working with Hockman College and Tri-County about possibly, you know, tearing those down as part of their curriculum. And then, you know, Tri-County is hopefully going to be even looking at some of those lots to rebuild a home.
Sure.
And Hocking, I guess, does that stuff too, so they may be doing something the same way. But so we've been looking at other ways to get those done more cost effective. But there's already, I think, 16 properties in Rick's pipeline right now in Nelsonville in the city.
Yeah.
Right. And I've been in touch, and I'm sure we're read up on some of the similar challenges. For example, the one at the bottom of Mason City Hill on High. You know, so it's whatever you guys want to do, you know, but if that's something to maybe consider next year, maybe we'll just budget $3,000 to tear a house down or whatever the case
Yeah,
may be.
Even if it was one a year, I mean, that's like some progress, right?
Absolutely. We gotta start somewhere. I don't have any.
All right,
There was-
hey, we got a backhoe here. Can you wreck 'em, Dan?
I just remember from last year.
Was there any other business? I just had one last thing.
Yes, I got one more thing.
Okay.
You've already had your last thing.
I know.
All right, so, the fire department has a list for replacement gear. Let me pull that up. Capital improvement, their replacement gear comes up to like $9,036.75. They got a fire hose tester. Theirs is out of service and not reserviceable. That's $2463.75. 13 replacement helmets, 1 pair of replacement fire boots through Johnson's Fire Equipment. Helmets are $297 each. Manufacturer standard price. A few may have additional fees. Fire boot pricings vary. Water
Dan, you
rescue
need to
suit.
print that out on a piece of paper.
I will. I'll forward this over to you. I'm just trying to give you the breakdown. Water
Why are
rescue
you
suits.
bringing it? Why are you bringing this up and not him?
Well, because I told him I'd bring it up.
Has he brought
I
this to you?
didn't know if he was going to, well, everything has to go through finance now.
What do you mean now? It always has.
No, it hasn't.
Well,
He used to have capital,
everything else.
he used to have
Yeah,
capital
I know
improvement in
about
budget that would take care of the fire equipment.
No more drama,
I understand that, but why is he not taking it to his direct supervisor, which would be the city manager, and the city manager would be bringing that up at finance?
Because he was told to bring it up to finance. I don't see what the issue is. Either it goes for Scott or Harry, it doesn't matter.
I'll tell you the issue.
What is the issue?
The issue is We had an issue, we just discussed an issue with the police equipment,
right?
and we had a fire truck issue before.
No, we didn't have a fire truck issue before.
So I'm just saying,
We did not have a fire truck issue before. The fire truck was purchased. It was purchased with money that he received every year before he was even fire chief.
Do we have to go in this again?
Well, I don't know. We're gonna keep bringing up the fire truck?
no, I'm just,
Well,
it is an
everybody knows
issue because the
it's
city
been there
manager does not have the
forever. It's been there.
authority
Let's just
to.
move on. Just send that to all of us and we
Well,
can bring it up.
I'm tired of the same thing coming up though.
But that's a lot to just,
Well, I'm
I mean,
just
I was
saying
trying
there's
to
a
write it down, but I
process.
couldn't keep up with it.
There's a process that, to follow here, and that's, the problem is, it has been a problem in the past, and that's why part of the citizens here have lost faith in the people that sit at this desk, Dan, that's the problem.
It's not for me. It's from the thefts that have gone on over time. And it's for things that haven't gotten done that they pay for.
But we're moving forward.
Well, wasn't
Transparency, so we're good.
this brought up at last city council?
What? I'm sorry.
The whole,
The fire chief.
yeah, the
he
fire
said-
chief was gonna be sending a
The
list.
fire chief said, I don't know why he's sending it to you, though, he should be going.
Well,
to-
because it was gonna go through fire thing, and he just sent it over, so I'll just bring it up tonight. It is what it is.
Just send it to us ahead of time next time so we can look at it.
I personally think that there's a chain of command and that the department, the employees go to their supervisors go to their supervisors, then city manager comes to council.
I honestly would have no trouble with Harry bringing it here. I mean,
I don't either. I'm looking at Scott and Scott looks like he hasn't heard anything about it yet.
So it's a procedural thing. I was just texting Harry actually in the background. So,
Harry can come out.
yeah. No, definitely he can chime in if he wants to. I was just gonna say,
It's hard to talk about people when they're right there without them speaking.
No, I'm not talking about Harry, it's not that, it's just that we've had council members circumvent the city manager in the past, and I think it creates issues, and I think that,
Who's circumventing?
I think it's
I said in the past,
I think it's a procedural thing on our side, and Harry and I just worked it out. It was no ill intent. Next time, I'll just make sure I have it all stacked up. And I've already told all the supervisors and Taylor and that as well. We're going to start having staff meetings to get synchronized, especially now that Jason's on board, at least weekly, maybe every 2 weeks, who knows. But we'll be able to have all this and prep. There's no reason we shouldn't prep as a staff before we bring it to you guys for all these meetings. So I'll take the one on the chin for this one because I haven't put out that guidance yet to make sure everything comes to me, roll it up and put it back out there. But it'll be fixed. It shouldn't happen again. So noted, he does need the equipment. Yes, he was budgeted for it. However, that was taken away, meaning so now everything's through capital improvements. So now he has to come back and ask for that additional, equipment, and he's going to have to do that throughout. I don't really know.
Would be really nice to have increased income tax collection so that in the general fund we could afford equipment upgrades in all
That's a
our
shameless
departments.
plug. Anywho,
That's a better sell than I made earlier. What could we have if we made the changes we need to, right?
No. So the way I envision, so I don't know what the future holds and who's going to be sitting here in 2 weeks. I don't know what that looks like. If I am the person or whoever takes over for me, my experience is these staff meetings, the whole point of this is to, number one, evaluate spending across each department. It's also to level any issues across different departments. And it's also to prep me to come to all these different meetings and to know who I need to bring. So if I knew that we were going to talk about fire stuff and Harry is here, I would make sure he is here, or if we were going to talk police stuff, Chris is here.
Right.
To make sure, or my other stuff, Jason's here. It doesn't matter. I just want to make sure the right people are in the room and I don't want to give you guys bad information and you make a decision in a vacuum thinking you're paying for this blue sanitizer, but really I just snuck a new audio system under your nose. There's no reason we can't provide that level of service to our citizens. And it's on me. I didn't have that procedure in place, and it won't happen again. So that's my fault.
Well, and it's not that, it's not only that, we talked about this at the council meeting, it's, the thing is too, and I'm all for, by the way, this is not a knock on Harry or the fire department, I'm all for the fire equipment.
Sure.
We were talking about procedures even at the last council meeting. It should be brought to police and fire, should be discussed, okay, great, and I'll give an example, we in the past, we needed a piece of equipment. Well, it went to committee that it was supposed to be going to. We said, wait a minute, you just want to buy this one piece of equipment because we have a contractor in town that wants to sell you, have no comparables to that. So why is this a good deal for the city? So they went to another committee circumventing it, right? They got their wish. Well, it just ended up, we put more money in that piece of equipment because we didn't do any due diligence. We didn't see if it's the right thing to do. Okay, that's why we have those processes. Sure. That's why we have those procedures. I'm all for fire equipment. It's not the issue, but should go police and fire discuss, yeah, it's a great thing. Let's hand it to finance. Finance says we're going to give them the money to do it. Taylor, please find out where we're going to pull it from. Okay, and that's why we have those processes in, so we don't, in the checks and balances, so we don't end up being called corrupt all the time on Facebook land or whatever. And I think that everything needs to run through the city manager because that's your job or whoever sits there. And then I'm not saying anybody here, I'm just saying it has happened in the past. I've been on council for 8 years prior to this. It's happened. Every council member I've probably served with probably has done it. And it's about time we get back to business and be very transparent here and let's be legit. And that's just the way I personally feel it needs to happen. I mean, we got it constantly all the time. And I know for a fact that the last meeting, even you were rolling your eyes at a council member for doing the same crap. So I'm just saying, you know who we did it. You know who I'm referring to. I'm just saying.
I'll get the procedure later.
I want that to go back through. Go through fire, please.
I'm okay with having it. Because we talked about it in open session, in council. I'm fine with it. And everybody seemed to be fine with it and moving forward with it. I'm okay with it. I don't think we can have people undermining, the city managers.
I don't think that was the intent.
I don't think so either in this instance. But I think recently we've had incidents where I believe the intent has been that. And I don't want that.
No problem.
In no way was that meant to undermine you, but just.
No, not at all.
It seemed like a no-brainer, but.
No problem.
We can do it any way you guys want.
We'll get it reeled in. We're all learning, I mean, for lack of better terms, it's been the wild, wild west on this side for all the city employees, and hey, I didn't take it that way at all. I think it's just a miscommunication and we can reel it in. I can definitely.
I forwarded you guys all that email.
Thank you.
In the end too, just to put a nice nightcap on that, it might be a good opportunity too to brainstorm about better methodologies of funding for equipment. Besides just the general fund capital improvement breakdown, because that model has sort of been broken in the last couple of years, mostly due to things like the amount of large projects like Riverside, 2 Wood Lane projects, Church Street neighborhood revitalization, and there was another one that's the capital improvement fund basically will be left with no money within 18 months at its current pace. And so maybe it's an opportunity really to think about how do we better structure our departmental budgets so that we're able to get them the equipment every year. We've talked about that, Scott and I. Next year we want to have broken down tiers, salaries tier, equipment tier, repair tier.
Through, and I think Scott's going to check, but with that grant coming through for the water, if we did get it, hopefully maybe we'd be allowed to buy a core boring piece of equipment that we could replace our own lines on Mill Street and not pay that very expensive rate without tearing up the street. So and if
Yeah.
Jason thinks he can core it and directional bore,
Well, Harry's
which
always.
we can actually directional bore up to a 6-inch to 8-inch line, which means we could put a 6-inch down in Poly Field. And we've always talked about putting a fire hydrant down there.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective,
You know,
how much total has Grosvenor Street cost us? Would you say 64,000?
I'd say more.
So let's just say 65,000 for the sake of easy numbers between the repair last year and the paving this year.
how was, the water line was 20 something, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was in the 20s. So in the Keys, or not the Keys.
I guess they did come down.
40.
Work is down at, no,
About 38.8.
37,
5. Yeah,
37, 5.
Close.
one of those two.
So you're right around.
I guess all I was trying to make the comparison is, let's just say $60,000 for the sake of discussion. A boring machine sized appropriately to the city is roughly 100,000. And we could have done that in-house, with a directional boring machine without repaving. So that's the kind of stuff, right?
Road needed paved anyhow.
Right, I guess what I'm saying though, but that's just one example, and right now, I tell folks, the city, no matter who's sitting in this seat, between what Taylor has and what all the managers have in their departments, they have a solid 9 months of triaging just to get everything cleaned up from bad processes, non-existent processes, you name it. And then after everything is triaged, then it's time to start leaning forward and getting ahead of stuff. Trees, right? No doubt there's city trees that city employees could probably prune and not kill them and not have to pay a professional to do it. But finding the time to go prune trees right now with the amount of potholes we have in town is just non-existent. The potholes, we have had potholes in town that just haven't been patched in years. I mean, long time, and the idea is to get rid of all that. So, 9 months of triage roughly. And then after that, leading forward, getting after areas with bad water line that we know about and, trees, you name it. So I hate to be the party pooper, but my computer's about to die from battery.
Okay,
So I just have one last thing to add. I think you already did say it. It's just, it was kind of noisy. I want to make sure I heard you right. So when you do bring things, whatever department, to bring that person with you in case we have questions. So I think we always did do that anyway.
They're all pretty much online watching now anyways. I mean, Harry's there, there's no doubt Chris is
Someday we'll
there.
get back to
Yeah.
the people.
Regular meetings, yeah.
Yes, people that I can look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Look at Harry, he's right there.
okay, so Harry, I think wanted to jump in there for a minute. Okay?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, there was there definitely was not any intent to try to undermine anybody. You just gotta have a really good working relationship. That being said, the request was made tonight for that information for finance. My thinking when that request was put in was this would just be another committee that would have the information besides police and fire. So that was the thinking behind that. It wasn't to try to leave somebody off like that at all.
thank you, Harry.
Do you guys have any questions about the request?
What did he say?
Do you have any questions?
For the request.
No.
No, thanks, Harry.
Okay.
Boots, fire gear, face shields. All that stuff has a
Shelf life.
shelf life.
I know, I
It has to be-
remember writing a check for all of it at once at one
Uh-huh.
point. When I was on council before, we had a previous chief that came to us and said, oh, by the way, 2 months ago, all of our fire equipment,
Right.
ran out and we need to replace everything. And I know Harry's been replacing it a little bit every year
Mhm.
instead of all at once,
Yes.
because it was a big pill to swallow at that point. And I know he does a great job at like getting grants and the insurance plan and stuff like that, that helps bring revenue back in, and he's used that stuff to buy equipment and stuff before, so, that's, I have no problem, supporting it, so.
I'm just gonna go plug it in. I'll be on the screen.
I wanted, if you guys were done, or
Harry,
I'm
you
fine,
want
I'm fine.
anything to add?
it's kind of funny to see running in the court.
You guys don't have any questions.
No, we don't have any questions for you. We understand it's for your gear.
Yeah, it's replacement fire helmets. The hose tester that we've actually been borrowing a hose tester from a department in Hocking County. And the past few years, every time we borrow it, we have to repair it because something breaks. The hose tester that we used to lend out to other departments, and it's now in a state of where it cannot be serviced at all. We've sent it out to a few companies; they can't do anything with it. And the other thing on that request is the water rescue suits, as we found the water rescue suits that we have right now are cooled water rescue suits they are not designed for swift water, and they are very dangerous for moving water. So we're just going to get 4 of those for the crew, and that's it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
I was
One more shameless plug there for the fire department as well when it comes to hose testing. The fact that we do it in-house saves a significant amount of money. Several fire departments, due to NFPA accreditation and other reasons, they actually hire that out. And the fact that we're able to do it in-house, we have enough people to do it, saves the city a lot of money.
So
without having it, we'll have to, look at it and do it next time? I mean,
What's that?
what's
the list, I think
The
she
list.
means.
Oh, I just sent it to you.
what, you want me to pull it up and look at it now?
We got Wi-Fi. I don't care.
I'm fine with it. I know we talked about it in the open session. Everybody seemed to
I
be on
don't
board with it.
remember any of what they need or how much it is or anything.
Oh, it's about 9 grand. It's all broke down.
I was just going to end on, I was challenged today to show gratitude to friends once today and then once at work. So I wanted to thank I know, it's been such a crazy few months. Like we have to stop and remember, like, life isn't so bad.
You guys don't have to thank me.
Things are going okay. But I wanted to thank the committee. And then if there's any council members watching at home, I wanted to thank city council. And I thought Scott had a good transition point there where he was talking about triage for the next 9 months, because honestly, if I was a council member looking at the two of us, I'd be like, you guys are running around like crazy people. But honestly, the amount of changes that both of us are proposing on different ends is kind of head spinning and kind of wild. But I honestly believe that, like, in the midst of a historic, like never in human history happened, shut the entire globe down for 2 months. I honestly believe 12 months from now, Nelsonville will be one of the only cities in the state that was able to restructure, add services, increase collections. Like, it's really, I'm pretty excited about what's going on, and none of it would have been done without passage through council. So I just appreciate you guys and support, and yeah, that's my gratitude. So thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Anything else?
I do not. Everybody good?
Very good.
We will adjourn this meeting at 9:15.